Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Living Beyond Limits. I think you all know I'm Reverend Jennifer Spear, and welcome to our Sunday service. And for those of you who are joining us online, welcome also. I'm so glad that you've come to spend your morning with us this morning. And so let's kick off the service by reading our vision mission statement that's on the front of our bulletin. We are a sanctuary where people can discover and reveal the presence of God within their own being and experience their oneness with all life. Through the realization of this inner presence of love and peace, we give way to the evolutionary impulse of the divine and become a beneficial presence in the world. So that is exactly what we are doing here at Living Beyond Limits, is we are giving ourselves the opportunity to step back into, to move into that place within us where we can feel our own spiritual essence, where we can touch our own spirit. That place within us that knows that we are a part of that one infinite presence, that we live and move and have our beingness within that presence, and that presence lives and moves and has its being within us and through us as we live this human life. Because what happens when we wake up to the fact that that presence is within us all of the time, regardless of situations and circumstances and what is happening in the world, it actually puts us in a place of power. We aren't such victims to what's going on because let's say the world isn't being loving or kind or generous or caring or whatever it is. We can tap into that within us. We can tap into the love that's already inside of us all of the time and bring that into the moment, into the conversation. We can tap into the peace that is that peace that passes understanding, the peace that is innate to our own spiritual beingness, and bring that forward and bring peace into a conversation or into a moment. And what happens as we stay conscious of the fact that that is our own essential essence, then we actually participate in our own spiritual unfolding and evolution, but because everything is connected to everything else and part of the whole, we actually contribute to that evolution of the whole. We support that in happening. We are an influence to the people that we are in immediate contact with, and we are actually an influence to that collective consciousness of humanity, that one life. And so I say thank you to each and every single one of you for bringing your light to this world, for bringing your spirit to this planet, and to being a beneficial presence that I know you all are. So thank you for that. And so if you don't know, tomorrow is actually Bodhi Day, which Bodhi Day marks the anniversary of the day 2,500 years ago when Siddhartha Gautama became enlightened and became the Buddha. And so the story says this. The story goes that rejecting the luxurious lifestyle of a prince, Siddhartha left the comforts of the palace at age 29 and went on a journey of deep introspection to seek the meaning of life. Eventually, he meditated in Bodhi Gaya, a town in northeastern India, under a peepal tree, now famously known as the Bodhi tree, and resolved to continue meditating until he achieved Bodhi, or enlightenment. After 49 days of continuous meditation, he attained Bodhi. The thing is, it wasn't just the one time of sitting down. He had been on this path of trying all sorts of different things that didn't bring peace and a sense of well-being, that didn't bring him to that place of this is what is right. He had all the luxuries of a prince that he grew up with, and one of the things that he realized as a part of that awakening is that all those luxuries and all that wonderful stuff isn't enough, that things do not actually bring us happiness. But that what is much more important and what matters is that we live a life that is full and that is fulfilling. So in honor of Bodhi Day, today I'm talking about awakening. And so spiritual awakening happens as we move from a human, egoic, limited perspective, and as we move out of or beyond those ideas that we have been indoctrinated with from our family and from society, the society we live in, from the clergy and perhaps the church that you grew up in, shifting from that perspective to having a different perspective, a larger perspective, a more expansive perspective. And oftentimes it's a profound shift in our thinking. So spiritual awakening and those spiritual insights that we have, they aren't an intellectual process. They don't happen like by reason. Oh, well, if this makes sense, then this and this and this. It's actually something internal that happens. It's a shift that doesn't happen by process of thinking. It's beyond rational thinking. And often when we have those shifts, those awakenings, those ahas, it brings with it a deeper sense of connection. It often brings with it kind of a sense of being able to let go. It brings with it often feelings of compassion and feelings of connection and of unity with all things. But enlightenment or awakening takes many different forms. It shows up in a myriad of ways. But I think most often enlightenment or awakening actually happens piece by piece by piece, one piece at a time over a period of time, rather than having total enlightenment and understanding all capital T truth all at once. That would be quite overwhelming, I think. So when we have an awakening, what happens is it changes the way that we see things. It changes the way that we experience things. That awakening changes our perspective often about ourselves, about life, about the universe, about spirit. It shifts that perspective, sometimes dramatically and in unexpected ways. And after that happens, we are never exactly the same again, because something has shifted inside of us. And so I'm sure that you've all heard stories about the astronauts who, when they are up in space and they look back and see planet Earth from afar, what an amazing thing that is for them, seeing that like that. And so I read something that says, astronauts returning to Earth after having traveled in space said they saw the planet in a new way. They were overwhelmed by the beauty of the earth and filled with awe. These men and women often reported that they were never the same because they now had a different perspective. Borders vanished. Conflicts seemed petty. A profound sense of oneness with all humanity emerges. There is a shift from a localized viewpoint to an understanding of humanity's shared destiny. A new sense of clarity emerges, making Earth's problems seem manageable and creating a strong desire to work for peace and for environmental protection. Ron Garan, who was one of the astronauts, overwhelmed by emotions, saw humanity's big lie in treating the earth as a subsidiary of the economy. Many describe it as a transcendent, almost religious experience with feelings of awe and oneness with the cosmos. They have a total shift in perception by seeing that. That's an awakening. And so as human beings, we all have this innate need within us to grow. We have a need to grow from these children in these little children's bodies, to grow physically, to living in these adult bodies. We have a need to grow intellectually in our understanding of things and how things work in the world and all sorts of things. It's the thing that keeps us learning and learning new things. And we also have this innate need with us to grow spiritually. And part of growing spiritually includes having expanded spiritual understanding of life and the universe and the way things are. Part of that spiritual understanding could include knowing that there is a bigger picture than what we see, or knowing that we are more than what our five senses tell us, or knowing and understanding that the nature of life is greater than our current understanding and how we perceive those things with our five senses. But when we don't honor that need within us, that desire to grow spiritually and to have an expanded experience and perception of life and the way things are, what happens then is we just continue to live our lives looking from that ego perspective, that little human limited perspective. And when we are only looking from there, you know, we all go there, we've all been there. When you're seeing from your ego, then what we see is it's a dog-eat-dog world out there, and you better get yours before somebody else takes it. Or you see that you have the sense that you need to protect yourself from the other, the people that aren't like you. Or perhaps you're filled with judgment or anger or fear or otherness. Those are all living from ego rather than living from spirit. I'm amazed oftentimes, and I think this when I'm out driving around and you see somebody who is driving like a jerk. And this isn't prejudice, but usually they're in a really big truck, and they're cutting people off and speeding up and riding on someone's tail or whatever it is, trying to get ahead of everybody else. And I think to myself, oh my gosh, I am sure that that person lives their life only looking from that ego perspective. And how miserable it would be, how horrible the world would look if that was the only perspective that we had. But that's what's causing that aggression. I gotta get mine, I'm the most, I'm the best, I'm on top kind of thing. So when we come from our ego's perspective, we worry and we fret and we get fearful. Our ego has a need to be right, to be best, to be on top, to be most powerful, to get our way. And because of all of that, then our ego needs to control everything. Do you ever find yourself controlling things? Never. And when we do that, when we are fearful and when we worry and when we get stuck in that judgment and when we have to control everything, it's because we have forgotten that there is something bigger happening here, something bigger than what we see with our human eyes, that there is something more, capital M, more. That there is something that is greater, that fills all of time and all of space and every single moment and every single circumstance. Because when we remember that, we can let go. Because then we know that we're safe, we know that we're whole, we know that we're enough, we know that we are love. It shifts the way we're seeing things. When we are coming from that ego place and stuck there, it's not like we don't come from ego, because we do. It helps us make choices and navigate the world. It's only when we don't realize that we have a choice and we get stuck in coming from the ego and don't realize we can choose something else. So part of what we forget then is that there is something, capital S, something that wants us to thrive, that wants us to flourish, that wants us to live our most fulfilling life and to be fulfilled. That there is a boundless something that wants to express through us. The ego doesn't know that part. Our spirit knows that part. So as awakening beings that we all are, we don't want to just be stuck from that ego's perspective and not be able to move into different ways of seeing the world. We don't want to be stuck in that limited perspective, because when we are stuck in that perspective, then our life becomes limited. We have many less options when we're stuck in that perspective. Like those astronauts have a shift in perspective, there's something within us that also longs to remember what it is we knew before we incarnated in these human bodies. Because before we came here, we were just at one with God. There's part of us that wants to remember the stuff we've forgotten. The stuff that we've forgotten when we took on humanhood. There's something within us that wants to know the capital T truth that we once knew. The truth of who we are, the truth of the nature of life, the truth of our relationship with the whole. Ernest Holmes, the founder of this philosophy, said, "We are not sinners. We are not lost souls. We are not destitute. We are not on the road to hell. We are divine beings already in the kingdom of God, and the kingdom is at hand. It is here, it is in us, but we must awaken. Awaken to a recognition that we are already in the place we aspire to. We are already in that presence, always, forever." And so the title of my message today is Awakening. And I'm talking about that we all are on a path of awakening. That's why we're here. We're on a path of awakening, and as we awaken, then we see from a different perspective. As we awaken, we see a different perspective about life and about the universe and about ourself that changes the way we see. It shifts our perspective and expands our perspective and enables us to see things in a more meaningful way. Do you see things in life in a more meaningful way than you used to as you've been walking this path? Our understanding changes and expands. And in turn, then, our lives change, because partly once we wake up to the fact that we are spiritual beings walking this path, then we tend to live with purpose, a purpose that is bigger than what we are. And as we awaken, we reconnect with our deepest essence. We reconnect with our highest purpose, the purpose that already lives in us, the purpose that was already there when we came to this planet. And so I have had a couple of mystical experiences in my life, and I'm going to tell you about one of them. One of them was I had just started this path. I was probably in maybe the second class that I had ever taken, which was like Science of Mind 2. And we were practicing lots of different kinds of meditation. And we were in class one day, and the meditation that we were doing is where you sat knee to knee with another person, looking into their eyes, and the meditation music playing, and we were just sitting there looking into their eyes for 15 minutes or something. Now, if you don't know me, then you haven't heard that I grew up in this household where I learned to judge everyone. Every person that I met, whether I was better than them or whether they were better than me. One of my clients, so funny, told me that, knowing me for a long time, she said, "You used to be really angry, like before I started this path." So anyway, we're sitting in this meditation, knee to knee, looking in her eyes. Her name was Linda. And all of a sudden, it was like I was seeing through the eyes of Jesus, that Christ consciousness. I was seeing with such love. There was no judgment. There was only compassion and understanding for every choice she had ever made in her life. I saw an innocence, that those choices were made out of naivete, but they were made out of innocence. But I saw with this open heart and this love, with no judgment, see this beauty, see this innocence. I had never experienced anything like that before. It was absolutely amazing. And of course, I've had lots of awakenings that I would call in my own life. And one of the big ones has come directly out of meditation, which is a realization of oneness. Having that felt sense of boundaryless, not having boundaries, a boundlessness, that there is only one, and I am part of that one. And I think many people have had that experience here. But I really know out of that meditation that each and every one of us, we are part of the whole, part of this oneness of life, never separate from it, connected to everyone and everything, connected to all of humanity, one with life and one with all things, one with that one infinite beingness. And so out of that felt experience, I see life differently. I feel connected to people. I feel connected to people I've never met before. I feel a love for people I've never met before. That is not who I used to be. And so I've had this realization also that I am not my body. I am not my emotions. I'm not my thoughts. I'm not my feelings. That instead I am something that is much more expansive, that is expansive even beyond the experiences that I have. And so awakening can take on many, many different forms. What people realize, what truth people come to, how they get there, it happens in a myriad of ways. Pema Chodron tells a story. She says, a young woman wrote about finding herself in a small town in the Middle East, surrounded by people jeering, yelling, and threatening to throw stones at her and her friends because they were Americans. Of course, she was terrified, and what happened to her is important. Suddenly, she identified with every person throughout history who had ever been scorned and hated. She understood what it was like to be despised for any reason: ethnic group, racial background, sexual preference, gender. Something cracked wide open, and she stood in the shoes of millions of oppressed people and saw with a new perspective. She even understood her shared humanity with those who hated her. This sense of deep connection, of belonging to the same family, is the awakening of a great heart of compassion. It happens in lots of different ways and lots of different realizations. You know, awakening can take on that form of recognizing our oneness with all and our interconnectedness with everything. It could take on the form of realizing our wholeness, that we are eternally whole, regardless of situations, regardless of circumstances. You could lose a limb, and that wouldn't affect your wholeness. It might be a realization that you are living in this atmosphere of abundance, which never falters and never changes. That the abundance is the nature of life itself. And in that realization of abundance and recognizing that there is a creativity, then you know that your options are limitless. And you know that you can't lose your abundance. You might lose your house, but you can't lose the truth that you live in abundance. Maybe that realization is about love, discovering a love within you that is without conditions, that enables you to feel love for people that you know and people that you don't know, people that you agree with and people that you don't agree with, people that you approve of and people that you do not approve of. But that realization of love becomes this foundation that then you are moving through your life from that foundation of love. Because it's your essential nature, it's recognizing that. Or maybe it's about recognizing that you are here with purpose, and it's living with purpose. Because there's something in you that knows life is bigger than this little human lifetime of going to work and going out to dinner and cleaning your house, that there's something bigger happening here. There are many, many, many different themes within awakening and enlightenment. And so I read something that I'd like to share with you that was about a signs that you are on a path to enlightenment. Here's one: a tendency to question things you've been taught, fundamental beliefs about life, death, spirituality, the meaning and purpose of life, and other essential topics. That means you're awakening, if that's what you're doing. You're awakening when you use your intuition to make decisions so that they are more aligned with your authentic self. You are awakening when you have a stronger and more meaningful connection with nature, finding peace and harmony and beauty and tranquility. Or having a sense of direction and purpose in life that contributes to the collective well-being. That's part of awakening. The inner feeling of being part of something much greater, recognizing the connection with the whole and the interdependence of all. Seeing death as a natural part of the life cycle rather than something to be feared. And a strong desire to live meaningfully, seeking to deepen the understanding of life and one's role in the world. Those are all signs of awakening. And so you have a little blue paper in your bulletin, and I would like to give you a minute to jot down an idea or more than one idea of what has shifted in you from walking this path. What truth has awakened inside of you that you didn't know before? A realization? What has shifted? It's all the same question. What has shifted in you that enables you to see or experience life from an expanded viewpoint? And so you might write something down: I've had an awareness of oneness. Or you might write down, I feel connected to everyone when I move through my life. You know, it could be your experience, it could be the idea or the thought that you've had. So Ernest Holmes says, as you awaken, you will realize you're awakening to yourself. You know, those truths already live inside of us. It's not like we're adding something on, as all we're doing is creating space for that, those higher understandings and realization and self-expression and who we are, so that that can come forward. So having spiritual awakenings requires intention, it requires openness, it requires practice. Like I said, you're not adding, you're just creating space for what already is to come forward. So then I think that awakening requires listening, it requires an openness to hearing, it requires being in the quiet rather than being bombarded by stimulus all the time. You can't hear that truth that lives in you when we're being bombarded all of the time. It requires us to give ourselves time and space, just to be, just to listen, to spend time in nature, to be outside, to not be doing. And spiritual practice absolutely helps. Sitting in meditation where we can finally get beyond the yammering mind, even if it's just for a moment. To journal so that we can get all the garbage out, so that it creates space so that we can hear something new. Spending time in nature, doing affirmative prayer so that we can get our negative thinking out of the way, so that something bigger can come forward. And as a result of doing those things, you will be creating fertile ground for awakening, for recognizing truths that already live within you, recognizing and awakening to capital T truth, awakening to your highest self, the I am that is within you, and the I am that is everywhere present. And so blessings to every single one of you as you walk this path of your own spirit, discovering it, discovering that infinite presence, and bringing all of that to this world in the most beautiful and miraculous way. Thank you all for that. Blessings to you. And so I continue in that consciousness of truth also, recognizing that yes, indeed, we do live and move and have our beingness within this one infinite presence, this presence of love and peace and wisdom and creativity and goodness, that it is this one presence that right now is living itself out within us and through us. And it is that presence right now that is knocking at our own hearts to recognize it, to open ourselves to it, to allow it to flow out into our beingness, into the expression of what we do on this planet, opening so that it flows into our homes and into our places of work, into our relationships as a healing balm. And so, yes, indeed, we do open our minds and hearts to all insight, to ahas, to awakening, so that we might live as our fullest selves on this planet. And so I speak this word also about every other person in this world, knowing that right where they are is this infinite one, and that it is unfolding itself right now as the fulfillment of every need, of abundance, of wholeness and health, as harmony in relationships, as insights, as wisdom, as inner guidance, as creative solutions. And I know that there is something awakening within humanity right now, and it is about our connectedness with each other and with this planet. And that I know that that is continuing to unfold and blossom and grow in our awareness so that we care for and about each other. And so I speak this word also about every politician and world leader and decision maker, knowing this same presence is right where they are. And it is also calling their hearts. Their own divine nature is calling their hearts to be a conduit for love and for good and for peace and harmony and inclusion and prosperity for everyone. Something is awakening right now. Something is beckoning right now. And Spirit is having its way because it's the only power there is. And so we simply put our attention and our faith and our trust right there and allow that to unfold. And so I release this prayer into that creative law, knowing that it is returning unto us full and expanded and grounded and real. And so I release this prayer and I let it be. And so it is.
And so it is.
And so I have a couple of invitations for you. One is December 21st. We are having our holiday candle lighting ceremony here where we honor 7 different religious traditions, spiritual paths. And it's a lovely holiday celebration. I invite you to bring a friend. I know there's all of you tell me whenever we do that candle lighting ceremony how meaningful it is to you to be embracing these other paths and to be honoring everybody as they walk their spiritual path on this planet. If you know of anybody who might like that, invite them to come that day. That day also, after service, we are having a holiday party at Chris Braunschweiger and Peggy Toole's house. So we're inviting you to wear your holiday attire, which might be your ugly Christmas sweater, or it might be your sparkly top, whatever your festive holiday attire is, and to bring an appetizer to share. That will be after service at Chris and Peggy's house. There's a sign-up sheet in the back. Oh, good, Rebecca, thank you. And so we invite you also, we have our World Peace Meditation service is going to be on Zoom New Year's Eve morning at 4 a.m. And it's at 4 a.m. because that is noon Greenwich Mean Time. So people across the entire world are praying for peace, meditating on peace all at the same time, adding our collective consciousness together. So we invite you to join us for that. Share that Zoom link with people that you might like to come. It's great. You don't have to get up or dress. You just get up in your pajamas and go sit down in front of your computer, and we get to be together and have a ceremony and meditate together. Our Sunday talks are available on our website and our YouTube channel. We invite you to check in on meet up and say that you're coming, to like us on Facebook and share the Facebook things. You know, we've started boosting our posts, and what they're going out to is people that like our page and people like them. So it's really important right now that you go in there and like our page, because that helps build the audience, because the people that think like you are the people that you share things with. And to follow us on Instagram. And last invitation is that we have prayer support after church. We have a ministry of prayer box in the back. If you fill out a prayer request, we will support you during the week. We have prayer shawls, which they have been created in that energy of prayer. You can take a prayer shawl home with you to wrap yourself in that energy of prayer, or someone that you know that is going through something in their life. And it could be a challenge, but it could be starting a new venture in life, you know. And the practitioners will pray over that prayer shawl with you for whatever it is, the desired outcome that you're looking for, and then you can take that with you. And we're also practitioners, will you raise your hand if you're a practitioner in this room, are happy to sit down and do prayer with you if you would like to have prayer done.